one of the things that you are often found saying, or I should say asking, one of the questions you often ask others is, do you know where your pelvis is pointing? What does that mean? Right?
I say, do you know where your vagina is pointing?
Oh.
I know.
Vagina is pointing. I had the alliteration going on. I'm like, the pelvis points. Okay, so do you know where your vagina is pointing?
Okay.
So what does that mean?
Oh my God. What doesn't it mean? No, I'm just kidding. But really. Okay, so we talked about that diamond of your pelvic floor, like using that shape, like the bony landmarks. So again, generally speaking, this is also everyone's anatomy is unique. We understand that, right? But like roughly at the center of this diamond, there is a hole that is your vagina. The vaginal opening is roughly at the center of this. So, okay, we're sitting. So you're sitting now. So notice just how you're sitting. Don't do anything.
Okay.
And then you're going to do something. Can you make your vagina point straight down?
Am I doing it? I don't know.
Yeah. So
it's just like it's your posture in a lot of ways, right?
Yes. And since that's the center of the diamond, another thing that I will say, like when I'm teaching workshops in my courses, because listen, I want to normalize the conversation around this, but like we all don't need to hear me say vagina like actually 1,000 times, right? Like,
but it's like you need to sort of oversay it to finally get people comfortable saying it the amount of times they probably should, right? You know, it's like you gotta go extreme, go big or go home.
Yes, exactly. So if you are sitting up in a way where your vagina is pointing straight down, that diamond of your pelvic floor is also now parallel to the floor.
Okay.
Whereas most people sit rocked back a little bit, like with their tailbone underneath them. So that would be like your vagina pointing forward.
Yes.
Right? And a lot of additional pressure on your tailbone, which actually creates, over time, it creates unnecessary tension and shortening in the muscles of the pelvic floor and pressure on your lower back that it snowballs. All these pieces come together and then you're like, why is my core weak? And it's like, well, because of the other stuff, like it all cascades from there. So if you just from sitting, like I tell people, and now I'm telling you, like have a Post-it note, put it on your laptop or at your desk. If you have a desk in a place where it would be appropriate to have this, otherwise you could like make a little code for yourself. And that says, where is your vagina pointing? So that you can throughout the day check on your posture. Because when I asked you to then sit with your vagina pointing straight down, you not only rocked forward, but you actually sat up tall. Your spine got longer. You sat up taller. And when you just make that shift, the rest of your spine and your body follows suit. Because something that drives me nuts as someone who has been in ballet classes for over 35 years, I've been in Pilates classes since I was 15. So what is that? 23 years. Yoga classes since I'm 18, right? Like, I can't stand it when it's like, okay, so your ankles are over your heels and your knees are over your ankles and your hips here and then your knees here, but where are your shoulders and where's your head? And what's it? I can think about one thing. Are you kidding me? And now I have a kid and I'm pregnant with another. You think I have that much brain space? Like, and again, this is years on end of it being scary to breathe. Like, I don't have enough mental space for that. I can ask myself, where's my vagina pointing?
Right. And that's a good way to simplify it for people.
And you then feel the response and then you might be like, oh, where are my shoulders? Like you'll feel what's going on in the rest of your body. And when we have that physical alignment, it allows all of our muscles to work in that more balanced way. And like all of the systems in our body, like so meaning like circulatory, digestive, reproductive, to work the way that they were designed.
Mm. Well, speaking of things working the way that they were designed, I want to sort of pivot into the next category, which is being at the doctor's office. Yes. And I don't really understand why we are timid to ask certain questions and to bring things up to our doctors, but it is a fact, us women especially are. And I don't know if it's this whole, be like a lady, you got to act this way. And so we either don't want to say those words like, what did you say earlier? Like vaginosis or something?
Vaginismus.
Yep, that one. Or B, they can't pronounce it, which is like me. I'm like, I can't bring it up because I don't know how to say it right. But like, there's all these reasons why we don't ask questions at the doctor.
Right.
And I think that, you covered it in the beginning of this, but it's more important now than ever that we do. And especially as we are getting older, or if we're considering getting pregnant, having kids, right? And there's going to be these changes physically to our body.
Yeah.
The more we understand it, the better we can work with it, right? And the better we can take care of it. So I'm curious, like, what questions from your experience in this field do you feel talking with your clients are like the most frequently left out that we should be asking? Do you have those moments with new clients where you're kind of like, well, have you asked this? And it's the first thing that comes to your mind, but for some reason it hasn't come to theirs, or they haven't asked. What just general questions should we be asking our doctors?
Well, I love this question, and there's so many answers. And I feel like really what, a lot of people will say, well, I'm asking you first. Mm-hmm. I think there's a level of embarrassment for not knowing. And I think we also are just like, we expect not to get what we need from our doctors. And this is like a very delicate thing, because also like there are doctors out there who are like doing a bad job of taking care of patients, right? They exist. And I also I like doctors. I also don't think someone goes to medical school and does residency and does all that and really doesn't care about taking care of people. They're also operating in a system that's really broken. Mm. And I think we don't expect to get our needs met there. And then I think there's also, like we said before, like there's an embarrassment that we don't know this already, or we think that we should know this, or like maybe I really am weird. And our conditioning as women is that then, like, if something is wrong in our physical body, like we would not feel this way if it was like, I think I have an ear infection. But if we're like, I think I have a vagina infection, we're now disgusting. We're not worthless, but we are worthless, right? Like we're slutty, we're bad, we're immoral, we're horrible, right? Like,
yeah,
you feel all of this other stuff that you feel that way because we've been taught to feel that way. And your doctor is your teammate. And the most of the questions that I get that center around anything like this, it just always starts with, is it normal too?
Yeah.
Is it weird? Is it normal? And I get it. I totally get it. I get it because also I'm not immune to this.
Of course, yeah.
You, right? Like,
right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
I there.
Totally, we have all been there. Mm-hmm. And I think the most powerful thing that you can do, besides knowing where your vagina is pointing all the time, is to like, and this applies also, like, even if you're not planning for your family yet, but like you're dating and like you're having multiple partners, or like you're self-conscious with someone going down on you, or you're afraid to even be like, hey, like if we're both going to have a good time here, can you go down on me first and then we'll get to it? Like, right. Any of this, the most powerful thing that you can do is periodically take a mirror and look at your vulva, look at your anatomy. What do your labia look like? What does your vaginal opening look like? What can you see just like normal? What can, like, just like at rest? What do you see if you like touch a little bit? What does your anatomy look like? Because then if like, say you have sex with a new partner and you're like really sore after and it like stings when you pee, you can look and see if like your skin is just irritated.
Right.
Right. Which there are things you can do for that. Right. Or you're just like, okay, like tomorrow it'll be better. Or like, well, what's that? Or I have a cut, or I have a sore, or I don't know. Right? Like there's it's an ingrown hair. Right. But like you then know, and you then can go to your doctor and say, this is different.
Right.
Because so often there's so much variation, like normal isn't uniform.
Yeah, that's like what I was thinking this whole time. I mean, I don't know, this might seem like an extreme, but in a lot of ways, vaginas are like snowflakes, right? Like they're not all the same, you know? I don't think there's probably as many variations of vaginas as there are snowflakes, but there's a lot of different ones, right? And whenever something is feeling, say, off down there, we go and we try to research it on our own. But there's not one singular photo or journal, like medical whatever, that can tell you exactly what your baseline is. So if you look at one picture that this website has as a diagram, it might not look like yours. And what your issue is then, is this different from my baseline, or is this not? So it's not even like, is this normal? It's what's normal to me. We don't take the time to learn our own bodies. So that's where we get ourselves sort of into that like hot water or trouble sometimes, right?
Totally. And I'm sure like someone listening like heard me say that and is like, oh, that's weird. I feel weird about that. I don't know. I'm going to need like a couple shots before I do it. I don't know.
Whatever works.
Whatever works. And I get it. And to like the point that I make is like, I know on my left eyebrow, there are like 3 hairs holding up the team for the outside edge because I waxed them a lot in high school. And like once you wax for a really long time, they don't all come back. And if one of those 3 crucial hair gets plucked, like the whole eyebrow is gone. Mm-hmm. That's certainly specific and maybe quirky for me to know, but it's not weird. But suddenly, if I know what my vulva looks like and I can speak to that openly, now I'm a weirdo.
Right. You look at your eyebrow every day. So that's an easy thing to distinguish, right? We're not taking enough time to look down there, so we don't know. And how can you identify whether or not there's a problem if you don't know what not normal, but your normal typically is?
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So that's number one. And then what we do is we freak out because we can't figure it out.
Duh.
And then we're too afraid to ask questions. And it becomes an enormous issue for so many women because then we just live with it. And that this whole, episode, I want to be about empowering women to take the time to do that at home if you need to, or if that is uncomfy for you, bring it to your doctor's attention and ask them, and they'll let you know whatever your comfort level is. But just that sort of understanding of there's other people who are having the same or similar experience, and your doctor is not going to think that you are crazy for asking this question, because you're not the first and you're definitely not going to be the last.
No. And in my experience, and like with clients as well, when they've reported back, a lot of doctors really appreciate when you come in with your I know sometimes a lot of doctors don't appreciate when you're like, well, I've been Googling, which I get. But when you're like, I have questions about my body and I've looked and I wonder about this, because we are so conditioned to just hand our bodies over from the first person who fingers us to our OB, right? Like we just hand it over and like, I don't know, you'll tell me if I'm weird, right? And this is a way that we want to view all of these people, whether we're having sex with them or getting a pap smear, as partners. Like they are partners in our health. They are partners in our pleasure. Like I also like, we aren't dependent on a partner to have an orgasm. Right? Like you can do that for yourself also. We are dependent on doctors in certain ways, because unless you yourself have gone to medical school and know those things. But like these are partners, they're allies. And the best way that we can show up, it's like in our relationships, the best way we can show up is as fully realized as we can be on our own as well. Taking responsibility, taking initiative, being knowledgeable about what we bring to the table.
Yeah.
And that's why like in my courses, like it's like I use movement as a tool to become fluent in your body, in your habits, where you are. Where is your vagina pointing? How about now? What does that then mean with like what your feet are doing? Because there is a cause and effect to all of this. And how do we look at that? Not with judgment and certainly not with disgust or embarrassment, but how do we look at that with curiosity?